A very good morning and thanks for staying with us on Spectrum Television. You're watching Political Spectrum. I am Raymond Ita, taking you through the course of the day's biggest political stories and events. And it's just about the second day after the May 29 inauguration of the new president of the country and, of course, the respective governors across the 28 states where elections took place on March 18 and, of course, February 25, respectively. The task of governance is well and on the way. We've been trying to ascertain the respective policy sheet of both the federal government and the respective state government across the country, and as to what their respective constituents can expect in the next 4 years. A lot of the discussions, of course, will hover around the administration of President Bola Tinubu, who's already gotten on the way with a pivotal decision on how he wants the economy of the country to run, and the projections will likely have in the coming days, especially with the impasse occasioned by the announcement of the scrapping off of subsidizing premium motor spirit, otherwise known as petrol, a development that has led to the scarcity of the product across the country and, of course, being sold for exorbitant prices by some independent marketers across the nation as well. But today, there's a special focus on what happens back home here in Akwa Ibom State, with Governor Omoino already setting foot to tax, with the ambition of leading Akwa Ibom State now solely resting on his shoulders. Well, the governor made fresh appointment yesterday. We mirrored that through side by side with expectations of the Umar Basiano administration as governor of Akwa Ibom State. Rex Eweme is a political affairs commentator, also a lecturer, the political science department in the University of Uyo. He will be joining us in the course of Burning Stories to talk us through all this. But first, let's start off, shall we, with a roundup of the day's biggest news stories and events. And we begin with President Bola Tinubu, who has ordered the Department of State Services, DSS, to immediately vacate the office of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in Ikoyi, Lagos. Now, recall that the DSS officials had reportedly stormed the EFCC Ikoyi office, stopping officials from accessing their workplace. However, in a statement by his media aide, Tunde Rahman, President Tinubu called on the DSS to quit the premises. But the president said in a statement that if there were issues between the two important agencies of government, they would be resolved amicably. In reaction to the development, the EFCC described it as strange, saying both agencies have cohabited in the facility for 2 decades. Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has tasked President Bola Tinubu to ensure the speedy execution of all its policies for the betterment of the country. Ondo State Chairman of the NLC, Oladele Amoko, gave the charge in an interview in Akure. Amoko, who congratulated Tinubu on his inauguration as President of Nigeria, also advised him to ensure that the removed fuel subsidy funds do not end up in the wrong hands, as lots of Nigerians were expecting much from the new government. Although the state chairman stated that Nigerians are hopeful because President Tinubu had made a lot of promises both in his inaugural speech on Monday and, of course, in the course of the electioneering campaigns. And he further said if Tinubu can do all he had promised, that Nigerians should be expecting to have a better outing ahead, because the promises would not just be mere lip services. Meantime, the House of Representatives has commended the decision of President Bola Tinubu on fuel subsidy removal. Now, this follows a motion of urgent public importance by a member, Jimo Olajide. The House further appealed to Nigerians to be patient and prayerful to allow the president to deliver on his promises. Now, recall that during his inaugural speech at the Eagle Square in Abuja, Tinubu had said that the era of subsidy payments at fuel has ended, adding that the 2023 budget actually made no provision for fuel subsidy, and more so, it wasn't justifiable to continue making payments on subsidy. Well, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, the NNPCL, had also since backed the president on the removal of fuel subsidy. In a related development, the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC, has said that President Bola Tinubu cannot solely take the decision to remove subsidy payment on petroleum products in the country. But the TUC said that the newly inaugurated president should tarry a while to give room for robust dialogue and consultation, as well as stakeholders' engagement before making any decision on what has been termed a delicate matter. Now, the Congress also said there are a host of issues that needs to be amicably considered and also resolved before such a decision can be taken by the president. Well, this is coming on the back of field cues that have since resurfaced across the country since the presidential pronouncement as Nigerians forage for the premium products. Well, the TUC, pretty adamant in his reaction, said the president cannot unilaterally take a decision on subsidy removal, saying there was a reason the immediate past administration of President Buhari had pushed a sensitive issue to the government. Well, if the issue of when to effect the removal of policy of subsidy was pushed to the incoming administration, surely everyone would have thought that it would be done in the confines of the provision of the supplementary budget that the Buhari administration said it was going to get from Parliament to sustain the subsidy regime until at least the end of June, and something that has been affirmed by the presidency, who have come out to, of course, denounce the claims that the president actually said the removal of subsidy took effect from May 29th, the moment he made that declaration. Well, it's left to be seen if Nigerians will fall in line, as the expectation is that Mr. President would do more than just lip service in terms of ensuring everyone falls in line with the latest policy, just so the adverse effects that we've witnessed in the last 48 hours does not continue. Well, let's turn our sights to home now, where the Kwabam State Governor, Pastor Moino, has approved with immediate effect appointment of some state offices, and key ones at that. Well, this was made known in the press release signed by the Permanent Secretary, Government House, Dr. Nathaniel Adiakban. Now, the list released yesterday includes appointments for Prince Enobongwa as the new Secretary to the Government of the Federation. He replaces the erstwhile SSG, Dr. Emmanuel Kuem. Also, Ekeretu Udo has been appointed Chief Press Secretary. He was, of course, in that role under the administration of the outgoing Governor, Udom Emmanuel. Anatia Hussein has been appointed Senior Special Assistant, Media and Publicity, while Otobong Edem Idiong is the Chief of Protocol. And Dr. Udwabong Inam is, of course, to serve as an economic advisor. Well, the release noted that necessary support should be accorded to enable them to discharge their duties creditably. Or how creditable, of course, is left to be seen. But there's a lot of excitement brewing in the air following the announcement of those tentative appointment by Governor Umoina, who, of course, was inaugurated on May 29 as the 5th civilian governor of Akwa Ibom State. Policy shifts for this administration will form the crux of our discussion on burning stories and whether or not stepping into the big shoes of predecessors, most of whom have lived larger than life at the Hilltop Mansion, is a task that Pastor Mono can navigate as governor of the state. Rex Eweme joins me after this break to talk about all of this and more, and follow the conversation, of course, on our social media handles, especially on Twitter at SpectrumT Online. We'll be hoping to get some of your messages in the course of the program. Stay with us. Political Spectrum will continue after this break.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTimes DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killing city.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matter counsel is releasing the evidence in our matter.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm not reminding you, not cases.
My lord, I think
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Every society is premised on the quality of relationships forged by its inhabitants. The health of these relationships determines how well people, relationships, organizations thrive and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on Star Times to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect live on Spectrum Television.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian, from issues on politics,
hello Nigeria. I remain committed.
security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyekan every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. And a quick reminder of the major focus of our discussion this morning. It's a couple of days into office for new governor of Akwa Ibom State, Pastor Umar Basiano, after he was sworn in by the Chief Judge of the state, Justice Ekaito Obo, to replace the outgoing governor, Udom Emmanuel. There's a lot of expectations from the new administration, and we'll try to mirror through his manifestos, which were, of course, put out to Akwa Ibomite and the rest of the world in the course of the campaigning, and to ascertain what the policy drive of the new government would likely be. Well, joining me to talk about all of these issues and more is a lecturer in the Department of Political Science, University of Uyo, in the person of Mr. Rex Eweme. He joins me live on Political Spectrum. Very good morning to you, and thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, Mr. Raymond. Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure to have you. A couple of days ago, you were here with us on Inauguration Day, and I'm sure you followed up through. You were also at the Nest of Champions to witness the inauguration of Pastor Umar. What came to your mind when you witnessed that ceremony? I know you're no stranger to inaugurations like that. Surely you saw that for Udom, Akpabio, maybe Victor Tad and others before now. Do you feel that the status looked beyond the election that many said almost divided the state, and now set to the task of governance in queuing up behind a man who now holds the big and massive responsibility of governing Akwa Ibom State?
Thank you very much. First of all, I wish to congratulate the governor, Pastor Moino, the president, and all the people that were sworn in on Monday. In a political contest, there must always be a winner, and a winner has to be sworn in to keep the ball rolling and all that. So Pastor Moino emerged winner at the end of the day, and eventually he was sworn in on Monday, 29 May 2023, to take the mantle of leadership in Akwa Ibom State. Well, we don't have any option for now than to queue behind him and give him the necessary support. Everything that has a beginning has an end. So the government of Udom Emmanuel that started in 2015 came to an end on 29 May 2023 after 8 years. So Umoino has stand in now to begin his own administration. So what is expected of our citizens is to do our best to pray for him and to give him all the necessary support to succeed in this administration. So from what I've known about him and from what he has said in his campaign and the promises he made on the inaugural speech on Monday, we have hope that certainly he's going to do his best and to continue from where the president has stopped and see how we can move Akwa Ibom State forward for the betterment of everybody.
Well, there was also the inauguration of the deputy governor of the state, Senator Akuneyai. It's the second time in recent history, if not all, that we'll be having a female deputy governor in the state. How critical or how crucial is this for women in Akwa Ibom State, especially with the constant agitation for an increase in the affirmative slots that was originally positioned for women as far as their participation in governance is concerned, 35%. Having a crucial role as deputy governor, how important is that for women in the state?
Well, in this administration, I must say he is or she is representing the women. She happens to be the second deputy governor in Akwa Ibom State. Valerie Bear was the first person, Lady Valerie Bear. So she has been to be the second person, and the Senator Dr. Akuneyai that I know from his past administration and all that. He has been a commissioner, minister, a senator and all that. I think he has always do well with the women. He carry women along. And going in there, he will always fight for, if not that 40%, but effective implementation of the 35% affirmation for women, and also encourage women to participate in the political process. And I think he will do more to bring in women on board as far as politics is concerned in Akwa State.
Well, before we touch on Pastor Moino's policies, it's important to factor in how significant the end of the Udom administration was, because the message we've been told here is that this is more or less a continuity. It's the same People's Democratic Party who have held sway in the state since 1999, and we all know the widespread support that Pastor Moino received from the outgoing governor. In the course of his inauguration, he kept referring to Governor Emmanuel as his political godfather and his worthy predecessor. He mentioned that over 10 times. That's to tell you that truly the Moino administration seems to be a spin-off, in the views of many, of the Udom administration. I'd like to ask, what was your summary view of the 8 years of Governor Emmanuel? And maybe that will give us a proper projection as to what to expect from Moino.
Okay, Udom as a governor has tried his best in various areas, especially economy, his industrialization policy, even though I will reserve my comment on that part for now. And on infrastructure, I think he didn't really do well in the first 4 years. Then the second 4 years that he was left alone, in quote, he did fairly well, better in the area of infrastructure, especially in road construction and many others. But they still have much to do in the economy, which the incoming government has promised to really look into it, trying to bring in the blue economy and see how we can develop agriculture through that sector, the blue economy and other infrastructures. Udom has tried his best, and since government is a continuous process, the Moino administration must continue, or will have to continue from where his predecessor stopped. There are so many roads Udom has done. He has touched some areas that in the history of this state that have not been touched. From my assessment, I think a local government like Etimekbo and Oroanam, I think some part of Okanafun have not been properly taken care of in previous administration. I think I've touched those areas. Even Oborekara, in terms of road construction, is only Oron that we are not treated really well in that administration, which I think Moino has to start from that angle, and also give us a good road.
The deputy governor is from that axis, so perhaps that's the expectation. Well, the road to the inauguration did not come without certain travails. The battle to secure the PDP governorship ticket, court cases challenging his candidacy on multiple grounds. There was this, beleaguering issue of his WAEC certificate that was alleged to have been doctored, and of course the elections itself. But he scaled through all of these hurdles. So how important will these victories, if you like, be for him in settling down to the task and giving him that confidence he needs to run a crucial office as the state chief executive?
Well, nothing good comes easy. We always say that. He has gone through a lot. He has gone through a lot of challenges to get to that level. Though now that God has given him the opportunity and the grace to emerge finally and eventually sworn into office, I think he has to take up these challenges. One of the things that people really talk about that time was that he's going to be a stooge to the former governor, the immediate past governor, Governor Udom Emmanuel, and also is going to be the worst person. There's a lot of stories from all quarters and all that. So those stories will form as part of a challenge to him, this government, to prove all of us wrong, to prove everybody wrong that he's a better person, is going to do his best to improve upon whatever challenges that the former administration had, to improve upon those challenges and make sure that he treats Akwa people well, make everybody have a sense of belonging without coming with the spirit of a divide and rule syndrome and all that. So every sector, every group, every person, the stakeholders, every person must be taken into consideration and make sure that we have a better Akwa Ibom State. And we also need to give him the needed support. So those challenges he's passed through should make him to brace up and do much better to prove people wrong. That's what I can see.
But in terms of those aggrieved parties, there are, or those persons here, there are, aggrieved parties who, as a fallout from the PDP primaries, were not happy with how he emerged as a governor of the state. And interestingly, some of them defected, from the party. How do you suppose he would have to bring all of these elements together to join hands to build the state forward? We heard him speak after he was declared governor-elect by INEC, and even at the inauguration on Monday, extending that olive branch to those who had lost out, at the polls, and they say, let's come together and work for the good of the state. How do you think he's going to go about that? A lot of persons still accuse Governor Emmanuel of playing politics with bitterness, in quotes. I don't know what they meant by that kind of rhetoric, but how do you suppose Pastor Moino should go about in healing the divisive roots in the state as a fallout from the election?
Well, Pastor Moino, on his inauguration speech, he has already said that he is going to set a reconciliation committee to bring in all those people that feel aggrieved within the PDP as a party and outside PDP. He has promised to do that and try to bring them in after reconciliation, try to bring them in government to contribute their ideas, their quota to development of Akwa Ibom State. Quoting him, he said, we have only one state, and that one state is Akwa Ibom State. We have no other. So all these people, not that it was a better than others, but you need the ideas of other people to come and join hands with him to work. That is going to set a reconciliation committee to look into that and bring everybody on board. Whether you are aggrieved or not, he needs those people now. That is what he said. And I believe he's going to do that. I don't know how he's going to go about that, but I believe he has his own strategy and plans on how to bring them together so that they can put hands together, contribute their ideas, and build the state for the betterment of everybody.
Is it possible for a government to have a smooth sail in governance without necessarily having the support of the people? I mean, you could just go in there and say you were elected to serve the people. You came on with plans, programs, and policies that would better the lot to the people. So regardless whether the people actually give you their support or not, provided you know that these things would better the welfare of the people, you go ahead and do them. Doesn't really matter if it doesn't enjoy a widespread of support from the people, as is the news making the rounds that it doesn't enjoy the popularity of the greater percentage of residents and citizens in Akwa Ibom.
Well, it's not really possible because this is democracy. There are some policies that you feel is good for you. You have the idea and you think it's very good if I implement this policy, but you don't look at the masses. So you have to throw it open. You need the support of everyone. There's no person, if you want to do that, that will result to anarchy. So there's no person that has had the monopoly of knowledge. So as a governor, you cannot say, oh, I know everything. I know what we want. If you don't know my village, so do you know what my people want in my own village and every other places? So that is why the government, the leaders always have a constant engagement with critical stakeholders in all the sectors to see how they can put things in place and carry everybody along. So he cannot, it's not possible for a government to just say, okay, without you, I can do this, I can do that. And what if they go on the street and make the place very much ungovernable for you? And remember in our in this part of the world, once you go in there, sometimes in our people say the politics is like a drink or a very tough wine that each time you test it, you always want it more. Pastor Moino have come in and definitely he will want to go for second term, and his performance in the first term, how he carried people along, and his good policies that people will embrace and enjoy the support of the people will determine whether his second term will be possible for him or not. So he didn't need to sit up and bring out people-oriented program that will make people to love him, embrace him, support those policies, and go along with him. Otherwise, he may have it tough in the second term, which is very, very possible that he will look for.
Well, no one, of course, does it all, and the governor is certainly going to be having to work with a lot of people besides his deputy governor.
Yes.
And he has already started making moves in that regard with fresh appointments that were made yesterday, numbering 5. But there are 2 of those appointments that are critical that I'd like us to touch on. First off is the revered position of secretary to the government of the state. Dr. Inobowa has been appointed as the new SSG, replacing Dr. Emmanuel Ekuwem. It's a role that has seen, the creme de la creme of Akwa Ibom State politics occupy, from Obawamana Kunumana, Tekambo Morin, Ekuwem himself, and now Inobowa is no stranger to the political terrain in the state. It's at his foot, basically since the Victor Ota days up until now. How crucial is that appointment to the success of the Umoino's administration? The talk already making the rounds across town is if Umoino could not see any other person amongst the new guard, a new crop of the political elite in the state. I mean, why do you think he went for the choice of Inobowa?
Well, in every politics, there's what we call a reward system in the political party and the political system. When I contest an election now, I expect a lot of people to support me, but there are some people that will give that support in all angles, in terms of finance, idea, commitment, everything. They put in the resources, they put in everything. And don't forget, politicians don't just invest in politics just like that. They invest with the hope to have a reward, and this reward comes in terms of appointment, contract, and a whole lot of things. Like I argue out with my friends out there, it's not possible for you to really see a government that will come in without carrying the old people along. Yes, it is very certain that Mr. Inobowa has been in the political scene for a very long time, and he has contributed effectively, has paid his dues and all that. And I don't really see him as a man that's not capable of handling that office. I'm not speaking for him, but for what I know about him, I don't see him as a novice in the system. So he has been an integral part of this system. He formed this government, and we don't expect anything less. He has put resources there, so this is a time to reward him, and I believe in a capacity. He has been in various sectors. I think the office just left now to take this one that he will be sworn in today. Is the chairman of Uyo Capital Development Authority. He has given that place a new look and all that, so I trust in his capacity. It's not wrong. But I want to advise people out there that it's too early for us to criticize. There's no person that can be brought into that place that all of us can, clap hand. In politics, if it doesn't favor you, then you are incompetent, you are this, you are that, you are autocratic, you are not doing this, you are too sentimental. But it favors you, we sing hallelujah. I'm not from Uyolo government, of course. I'm not too close to Inobowa, but from what I know about him and from what I've heard about him, I think you should give him a chance and see what he can bring, the new thing can bring to bear to contribute to this government and develop Akwa Ibom State. That's the angle we should look at, not to start with criticism. But the bottom line is that there's no how, we will see more of that in the subsequent appointment. There's no how we can rule out those old people. They need to be part of the system because they contributed immensely to the emergence of Pastor Moino and the subsequent story in. So we cannot rule them out.
Interesting. Let's look at his policies now, because this is what everyone is bickering about. Now that he's into that office, I mean, the cost of the politicking, beginning with his anointing as the favored candidate of the governor for the election, came as a surprise to many. The PDP and the campaign machinery of Pastor Moino had always insisted in the course of the campaigns that this is a man who started his business from scratch, and he knows the business terrain in the state and the country well enough, and with that experience in his resume, possesses the ability to build on the achievements of previous administrations. Right now, it looks like the choice will be between progressing with the current trajectory of development that the Uduma administration initiated, or the simple choice of treading a path that many of us cannot even decipher at the moment? Well, you look at the Arise agenda, it's more like a finishing touch to the completion agenda sparked by the governors, the outgone governors, the Kada philosophy. If you look at all of that and compare it to the Arise agenda of Pastor Moino, are you positive that we could be, looking at the prospect of, growth and development in Akwa Ibom State as promised in this era? Or do you think it's just going to be business as usual, in quotes?
Well, I don't see that coming. I mean, being business as usual. Pastor Moino is coming from a private sector. And we expect, he's not a regular politician, and we expect a lot from him, especially on a critical sector of our economy. Udom came in with the industrialization policy, which most times I tactically avoid talking about that because I have personally moved around those places and I've known certain things that are going on that I don't always like to say it out publicly. But he has tried, to put up the structures. Umono coming in from the private sector, I think you should also look at that aspect because Akwa Ibom State is a civil service state. I thank God he said something that day at the stadium, part of his inaugural speech. He said that we cannot give political appointment to everybody. Therefore, some people have to be trained and empowered in other sectors. And one of the places that he can create jobs is those industries. So if he can effectively manage those industries very well and employ Akwa Ibom people, it will go a long way. He said he has been in employment of labor for a very long time now. He employed thousands of people that have been on his payroll. Fine. Now that he has opportunity to be in government, he should also come from that background and see how it can create more jobs for our people. It's not necessarily white-collar jobs. Creating an enabling environment for young people to strive is one of the best things we can think of. There are some people that sometimes they don't even need a white-collar job. They are striving on their own, doing some kind of businesses and all that to survive, but they don't have that enabling environment in terms of security, in terms of power, and a whole lot of things like what is happening in the fuel now. Just yesterday, I gave a dry cleaner cloth to iron for me. He couldn't do that. And this morning I called. What happened? He said he couldn't even see fuel to buy yesterday. And this morning he managed to buy 600 naira. And guess what? How much is the iron in this cloth? 150 naira. Except it will top a price now. So if you give a dry cleaner cloth to iron 150 naira, is buying fuel for 600 naira. Just look at it. How much gain will he make at the end of the day? So if the government can provide enabling environment, which power is one of such, it will go a long way to make some of our youth to be self-reliant and be on that without looking at the political appointment or the white-collar jobs. There are some people that can do much better. So Umano coming in from that angle should look at that aspect and see how our youth can be engaged and create those employment opportunities for our youth. Some of us, once we have that environment, conducive environment, we will take on certain things and do what we can do on our own to take our, engage ourselves and take our eye off whatever thing the government is doing. So you need to look at that in industry very well. You talk about the blue economy. This is another aspect that I want him to really look at because we have not tapped into that. Go to Orange, for instance. The revenue, if that sector was taken care of properly, the kind of revenue government will have generated from that angle will have go a long way to put it back in other infrastructure that could also help to better the loss of the people. See people going in there, you allow the beach for tout to do whatever. What stopped the government from empowering our fishermen from that angle? Buy boat for them, and then when they bring this good, you build a warehouse. Stock the crayfish there, the fish there, and then you sell it to outside that. You get your how do you call it? Your revenue from there. You employ credible people to take care of that. Get your revenue from there. What even stop us from exporting this crayfish in the first place? You can grind it, make it in powder form, export it out, and make good money out of all those resources from the blue economy. He keep on talking about that.
Without meaning to pause you short, I find it interesting that you factored in this conversation, because I once had a conversation with some fishermen, this time in Ibno, around Ibno, and we're discussing about the governor's promise of making the beaches around the states, more popular, to boost tourism and all of that. And then just following up on what you've just said, one of the concerns you raised was that, yes, fine, it's a very fantastic and wonderful idea, but the moment the government initiates such projects, which ordinarily will have been for the betterment of people around the riverine areas, the fishermen and so on, he expressed concerns about taxes. They would commence taxing, including for those who are walking around those areas. And he said it's not something they want. They rather prefer going ahead with the traditional method of doing business around that premises. How do you suppose, the governor would have to deal with an issue, like that? Because these are real-time concerns, if we have to be honest.
Well, tax is one of the things that every individual, every citizen in this country has to contribute, because that's what the government is getting part of the money to fund the budget and give us the needed infrastructure that we need to do our businesses. If the government empower the fishermen, buy boat for them, create a conducive environment and pull out, then bring in genuine, whether we call it task force or monitoring committee or whatever nomenclature you can give to such a committee, I don't think what they are talking about should be a kind of a multiple taxation. We are paying this to government and the tax is coming here to collect this one. This one just wake up one day, collect money, and all those unnecessary contribution, taxing and all that becomes a problem. So if the government want to do that, then they have to regulate that sector. Government had to put eye there and regulate that sector to avoid the people being harassed or taxing unnecessarily. The government should put appropriate plan for that, so that as they are doing the business, they have what to go home with and also take care of the family while they pay a certain percentage of tax to the government. Of course, if government can give them interest-free loan or in whatever capacity they can do that to fund the business, they need to pay certain things back to the government. But the government had to regulate that sector to favor both the government and the people that are engaged in that kind of a business in that particular sector.
Well, interesting conversation, and we'll talk more about this again when we come back. We'll still mirror on the blueprints of the Umoinos administration 2 days into the saddle, and just how well it can improve the lot and welfare of the people of the states. There are two critical issues lying before the new governor and his administration: the Ibom Deep Sea Port and the controversial matter of the remapping of the state. We'll talk about that when we come back from the short break. Stay with us. Political Spectrum will continue.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum live on Spectrum Television. I am Raymond Etan. A quick reminder of our major focus this morning, mirroring through the policies of the new administration of Pastor Moino as governor of Akwa Ibom State and how well he is expected to fare in the saddle as the new chief executive of the state. Well, the Arise agenda of the new administration obviously shows a clear understanding of the immediate needs of the state and a follow-up on the gains made by the outgone administration of Governor Udom Emmanuel. Well, we'll talk about all of these and more as we also mirror through the small matter of the deep sea ports project that has been an equivalent tax for successive governments over the years, and whether or not Akwa Ibomites would see it come to fruition in the current dispensation. We'll also look at the controversial remapping exercise that has led to a whole lot of problems and raised concerns in several quarters of the state, especially the Ebolo extraction. We'll look at that later, but first, let's get some excerpts now from the inaugural speech of Pastor Umar Basiano on the day of his swearing in as the 5th civilian governor of Akwa Ibom State, and we'll come back for more of our discussion.
In spite of the vital forces of development, we choose the truth over lies in the cyber session. His Excellency, Mr. Udom Dr. Mrs. Musa Udom Emmanuel, to the campaigning in chief. Thank you for your extraordinary for your last answer. You have said many times to a baby and abandon the baby. I don't want to be an orphan. And so thank all the past leaders of our state from the military area. Late Honorable Benisani, General Architect Victor Atta, the father of Nina Akwa, the special thank the principal father, Mr. Dale Emmanuel, CON. Thank you by standing Akwa Ibom State as usual. And one government after the other, we placed the state on a different pedestal. We pay tribute to you and your financial services. Akwa Ibom State will forever be grateful to you. Please permit me at this point to put on my clergy's man's hat and quote from St. Luke Gospel chapter 1, verses 46 to 50, using the King James Version. And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit has rejoiced in God my Savior, for he has regarded the low estate of his good servant. From here henceforth, all generations will call me blessed, for he is mighty, his wonderful things for me, and holy is his name. And his mercy is on those who fear him from generation to generation." Standing here this afternoon, my fellow presidents, I'm very conscious of this inspirational moment. I cannot get the word, I cannot let them get a little emotional. I am all of the grace that has been granted me. I am all of the blessings of the Lord in my life. If someone told me years ago, but I stand here as a newly sworn governor.
And that was His Excellency Pastor Umar Basiano, the governor of Akwa Ibom State, delivering his inaugural address on May 29, a couple of days ago. Well, Rex Eweme is still live here with me in the studios. He's a lecturer, Department of Political Science, University of Uyo. We just had excerpts from the governor's inaugural address, and I'm pretty concerned about one particular line of his message on Monday, where he described Akwa Ibom State as Nigeria's best kept secret. This is in line with what he termed the monumental developmental strides across all sectors, initiated by his predecessor, to whom he said he owed a debt of gratitude. There were several things to point out from the governor. He talked about Ibom Air, the smart terminal building, the maintenance, repairs, and overhauls of the MRO, the certification as well that came with it, and several other projects in line with the industrialization policy of the previous government. Is Akwa Ibom State rather truly Nigeria's best kept secret? I mean, there's been attempts by experts to juxtapose the developments that has been witnessed in Akwa Ibom State to what has been obtainable in Lagos for years now. Can we rightly say Lagos is ordinarily the benchmark? Can we say we're somewhere close to being the industrial or economic hub of the state or the country, as Lagos has over the years been referred to?
I don't seem to agree with that aspect for now, because I don't know the indices from where the governor is coming from, but from my understanding and from what I've seen, I don't really think we are there yet. So if you talk about Akwa Ibom State, refer to Akwa Ibom State like that, what of the river states? So what can you say?
Are we making headway, positive headway, without a political undertone attached?
Okay, fine. I think we are making a headway, especially in aviation sector. We have done a whole lot of things there. The former governor, the outgoing governor, have done a fantastic job in the aviation industry. I think I give kudos to him. And I think outside that, I don't really see much thing that is so special again. He will have done a little in the industrialization policy, all these industries that he built. But like I said, I am always trying to avoid saying certain things about that area, because I don't really, to be very sincere and objective about what is, I don't really see something really working in that angle. But I give it to him on aviation industry. So come to educational sector. Well, I don't know what I could say about that. If you move out of the town and go into the hinterland, you see that the educational sector is really suffering. There's a lot of things there. You don't have classroom. You don't have, in fact, if you have some classroom, you don't have desks for students to sit on, and a whole lot of things. Akwa Ibom State declared free and compulsory education from the government of Akwa Ibom, and the policy is still ongoing. And the state government were to pay some certain subvention to school to stop extorting money from a student or taxing the parent and all that. So that is not going on. If you go now and interview a principal in some schools, and they will tell a whole lot of stories that I wouldn't like to say it here publicly. You are a journalist, you can go on the independent investigation to see some of these things. So we don't really do well in the aspect of education. For health, fine.
Before you come to health, for education, is this across board, or it's just narrowed down to some specifics? Because of course you are in the community of the apex cadet of basic learning institutions in the country, and that's the university level. So are we having these challenges across board?
Partially in the higher institution also, but the sector, that the area that really affected mostly, which supposed to be the foundation, is primary and the secondary. For tertiary institution, I think something is going on there, like AXU, for instance. I do encourage people to go to AXU, because in terms of academic, they are doing fantastically well there. But infrastructure, they are still lacking behind in some aspect of infrastructure there. But they are trying their best in that aspect. But the foundation, the very foundation that's supposed to take people to that higher cadre, is lacking behind. You don't have most teachers, and the little one that they employ. You know, what is happening at Akwa Ibom State in terms of employment? That takes me, sorry, I'm not trying to derail from the major thing now. What marvels me is that because of lack of employment, you see people that don't have passion for the job, because they know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. That's the national language, don't mind me. That, you know, they know somebody in the government, and they just put their name. Sometimes they don't even have the interest. You just see your name on the board and you take appointment paper, you go in there without adding any value to the system. And this is killing our education system. So it's not only the infrastructure, the manpower is lacking seriously in that aspect of education, primary and the secondary. And I see the government is not really doing anything to monitor and evaluate the activities in that angle. Because if the government brings out a policy now, for instance, first of all, after implementation, the next thing is supposed to monitor the policy and evaluate to see the progress and where the challenges is. So the people in that sector, in the ministry, I don't think they're doing what they're supposed to do, because we lack manpower in that sector. The people recruited is as a result of lack of employment. They don't really have that passion. Teaching profession is not just anything or anybody or all commerce affair. You must have people that have that passion to go in there and impact the knowledge, not people that just go in there to pick salary. So those things contribute to that aspect that make us not to really progress in that aspect of education.
Still sticking with education, the Udom administration was bedeviled by constant face-off between his administration and unions tilted towards the welfare of teachers in the state and generally the workers, especially because of the contentious issue of pensions and gratuities. We've heard about these complaints virtually throughout the administration of Governor Emmanuel. It's a very, very gigantic responsibility now before the new governor, because it's just inherited, pensions and gratuities that previous administrations could not pay. And that's also something some have said was the major problem for the Udom government as well. How would you advise him to go about the issue of pension and gratuities? Because I won't be surprised if in the next few weeks and months we start seeing placards displayed and protest by these teachers crying that their pensions or gratuities have not been paid, even when the government keeps maintaining that it is actually up to date with the payment of these pensions.
Those things you mentioned are what we call motivational factors in every sector. You give me promotion, you must give me something that is commensurate with my new office. You don't pay on time or you delay my promotion, then pay me the arrears. There's also what we call leave grant. So it's not only pension and gratuity. There are so many things there: arrears, promotion arrears, promoting people on time and all that. So many factors. So pension and gratuity is just standing out there, but there are some other things that that follows that we don't really know much about it. So some of these things are motivational factors, but the moment the government don't look into those things they take for granted, it demotivates the people, the personnel, and do affect the outputs in that environment. So I wish to suggest to the new administration to look critically. Teaching profession is not easy. It's not easy. Even the governor himself is doing a program in my department. He knows what it is. So it's not easy. I think the new administration should really take a look at that. Pay down some of this pension too. They are taking from their salary, contributory pension scheme. Then at the end of the day, you are retired after putting in your effort for 35 years or 60 years, now the 65 years of age, and then at the end of the day, you come out and be crying for your own money that have been kept somewhere. To get it back to you, just like Nigerian banks, that is easy to put in money, but to get back, it becomes a problem. So please, those set of workers should not be toiled with. The new administration should look at those issues critically and clear them off, pay their gratuities for those that have been retired, pay pension for retirees, and be productive in that angle. Even as I was saying that they don't monitor to see what teachers are doing there, some of these things make them to be demotivated in putting in their best to impact knowledge on the student. Because when you don't give me what is my due, what encouragement are you giving me to pay my way down to work and sit down there and come back and nothing, those incentives are not there. Sometimes teachers don't even have a good classroom, or a good office to stay and work conveniently. So those incentives will serve as a motivational factor that will make them to do their best and be productive in that particular sector. So the new administration should look critically into that sector and do the necessary things to motivate the workers there.
Well, for a state blessed with so much abundance of resources, albeit a lot of the attention has been focused on crude, the governor did say that agriculture is one sector he expects a revolution to occur. In fact, he described it as the new black gold, and he said he wants to get people involved. We had a lot of this under the Udom administration, that agriculture was going to be given its pride of place. It's still contentious whether the Udom administration truly did do a lot more to ensuring that agricultural sector in the state improved and actually got the people truly involved, because we could see the result for ourselves. if for anything, there's been a lot of backlash within that sector. The governor accusing several communities of being responsible for destruction of several plants or plantations that the state government had put in place. And this has been summed up to be the reason why we've not seen real-time progress in some of this investment. There's been tomatoes, there's coconuts, there's several others. In what way are you projecting that this government will indeed invest in agriculture? Because everyone agrees we have to diversify. The petroleum industry is having a lot of issues, and we have agriculture. So why has it been so difficult for successive governments to take the matter of investing in the agricultural sector seriously, knowing the benefits that abound? And how do you suppose Umoino would, act differently?
Well, the problem is not investing in agriculture. The problem is to what extent and to who. When you talk of investment, you are not investing, the word is not in vacuum. You invest on individuals, on human beings. And who are these people? The problem with government policy is that when government come up with a very good policy, and at the end of, at the point of implementation, you see the early turning around. That's what we call in politics early capture theory, propounded by Professor Onoha. The early capture theory said that the government policy is always, when the government implement policy and this policy turn around to favor the elites. So the elite will always turn around and capture this same policy. If you want to invest in agriculture, assemble the people from a rural area, the people that have a farmland in which, depending on the area you want to invest in, know the people that have interest in that sector or in that area, train them properly. When you train them, empower them to move into that area and be productive, not sitting down in Uyo and make it so political. A commissioner will bring in his brother or his sister or whatever to make up the list. At the end of the day, it's government money. Just take the money and go your way. And the government will not even do anything to go and monitor whether the money they release has really gone down to the actual people that are supposed to benefit and use it to work effectively and get the result to which the money was released. So that is a problem. So if they want to invest in agriculture, it's fine to mention, it's easier said than done. It's good to invest, but what are you investing in? And who are the people you are investing on? And what area are you really looking at? Is it cassava? Is it tomatoes? Is it plantain? Is it this? What area are you looking at? Get people that are interested in that area. And sometimes do a kind of follow-up, set up a genuine committee, not politicians. That's why I am happy that Umar is coming from a private sector. He knows how to manage a business. So he shouldn't leave some of this in the hand of a politician, because they will bring in people that don't have interest in that area just to get the money. At the end of the day, you hear billions of naira have been invested in this. At the end of the day, we don't have a positive impact despite the money that's sent in, because the money went into the wrong hand. The money went into the hand of the people that are not interested in that area. People should be trained on agriculture, on the particular areas of this agriculture, and then empower them to go in, monitor what they are doing, and then get a reasonable result. That is the only way we can achieve that, not just to sit down and invest. Invest how? So
okay, interesting. So as we wrap up the conversation, the governor concluded his inaugural speech that day by saying he will set up a bipartisan reconciliation committee, which you mentioned as we discussed earlier on. Side by side with the business of running governance will be concurrent cases at the Election Petition Tribunal. It will, of course, be a distraction, more or less, to every other sitting governor who was inaugurated on May 29 if aggrieved parties decide to channel their grievances to court. Do you think these distractions are likely to impede, the fast tracking of developmental projects that we expect, from his administration? Or you would expect him to sit down or settle down to the task of delivering on the goods that he promised us in the election hearings, while still, of course, paying attention to what happens at the tribunal?
Well, as a governor, he's not the one appearing in the courts. He has people that appear and represent him at court, the lawyers and all that. I don't think, yes, somehow it's distraction, but then that should not really turn his attention away from the actual governance. Politics is over. Now is governance. Is for him to sit down and deliver on his promises. Yes, those things are there. And before he came in fact, before he even have intention to contest, he knows very well it's not going to be easy. After election, there'll be tribunal and a whole lot of things. So I think he has already braced up to face those challenges and then map up a strategy on how to manage those challenges going to the court and the actual administration. So those things are bound to be there, and the government should be focused and deal with the real administration and the governance, and don't allow those things to be as a distraction to him. So it can affect his governance in any way. So,
Interesting thoughts indeed, but we have to pause the conversation there. Many thanks indeed, Mr. Rex and Wilmette, for joining us on today's edition of the program.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much as well. All right, whether intentional or coincidental, the arise subrequest of the current administration resonates with the Dakada philosophy of the Udom administration. So Kwabamites will be watching keenly whether the promise of effective continuity in governance will be the hallmark of the Umoja administration for the next 4 years at least. And we'll be watching every step of the way, just like we'll be right back tomorrow for another edition of Political Spectrum. Join us again if you can. But for all the latest from the world of business, Vlad and Cam is up next in a matter of 7 minutes to talk about business on Business 360. Stick around for that one. But from me, Raymond Ita, and the rest of the crew, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.